presentation that was given 2 weeks ago, and I'm told that it will be even better this time. So you're in the privileged position of seeing a presentation that's been well thought out. I'm Todd Graham. I work as a forecaster and economist for Metropolitan Council Research. We have a volunteer team of people who coordinate the Twin Cities Research Group program, and this month our program is Tableau and Minnesota Results Management equal parts. And we had thought about this over the winter when we were putting together all the program material for the year, and there was a lot of interest in data visualization. Tableau as a platform for doing that kind of work, and so we have a very talented trio here to present what they do at Minnesota Management and Budget. Our presenters today are Jeff Niblack and James Heigan and Bente Madsen, all of whom work as the results management team at MMB. Jeff actually came from USGAO before being with the state. Jane came from Wilder Research right here, and Bente recently finished a master's degree and joined the team. So we usually start by going around the room and everyone can introduce themselves and very quickly say what agency organization you work with, and then we will jump into their presentation.
Yeah, Markel, Met Council.
I'm part of Hendrick.
Management analysis and development.
Jane Vanderpool, Dakota County. Tommy Godwin, Washington County.
Ben Morrow, Minnesota Metro Project. And Howard, Ramsey County.
Now Ramsey County. Paul Gerard at Wilder. Marissa Peterson in City of St. Paul.
Rebecca? Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming. It sounds like we have a lot of folks in sort of government. So we are too. And we know what kind of integrating new software can be like in government a little bit. So our subtitle on this is how one team at the state of Minnesota is using Tableau and trying to break out Excel spreadsheet charts and habits. I know that TCRG has had a lot of different data viz presentations, and I think everybody comes in wanting to walk out knowing what to do next. And so hopefully this will give you sort of a bit of a vibe of how we came to this, how we use it, and a little bit of tips and tricks from us, three of us who are using it now. We equal hearts. We really just wanted to be the first TCRG presentation that was using an emoji, and we succeeded in that. So Todd let us know. So what we'll talk about today are really sort of the basics of Tableau, what it is, what it isn't, and then tips on how to use it from self-taught people. And we really, I think this part is pretty important. We did this all on our own. So the three of us have been to an hour-long training last week. And before that, we sort of figured out how to use this on our own using Google and the Tableau website. So we are really talking about this from our perspective. We're not salespeople for Tableau. The limits of our knowledge are just what we know about it. So there are going to be some questions that you might have that we won't know the answer to, and that we can refer you to someone else. But also, I just would invite other people who use Tableau to share their experience as well. In the last presentation, that was also very helpful. So just quickly, who has downloaded Tableau? Okay, who's downloaded it and never used it after that first time? Okay, and who's actually spent some time on it? Okay, and who would consider themselves a Tableau expert? Good. Good, because otherwise I would just hand you the clicker. So yeah, so there's obviously a wide range of experience and expertise here, and so I would just really invite you guys to ask questions and also share what you've done. We will spend a little bit of time looking at examples from state government of how it's being used. More and more, it seems like almost every meeting I go to, I hear about a new team at the state using Tableau, or I find out about a new group of people who are giving it a shot and trying to make the business case for why we should use it. So I think the folks in this room are probably a good example of that. We heard of a lot of people from different agencies who are trying to use it. So we'll just sort of pull some examples of what we know about going on at the state. And again, we'll say that there's a lot going on at the state that we probably don't know about. Yeah. And then we'll have a Tableau exercise. Did anyone get to download the data and play around with it a little bit? Everybody's busy. We'll do it together. So about us, we are members of the Minnesota Management and Budget Division. Minnesota Management and Budget. We're in the Budget Division. We're the results management team. So we work on the Minnesota Dashboard, which is a set of 40 indicators about the quality of life in the state of Minnesota. We give red, yellow, green statuses and then convene meetings about what to do to help make the outcomes on those indicators even better. We have an effort that's called Results First, which is the product of a piece of legislation that passed last year that's looking at programming specifically around recidivism and sort of the benefit cost of different programs that are being run by the state of Minnesota. And then we have an effort called the World's Best Workforce, which is also from a piece of legislation from 2013 looking at 5 goal areas around education outcomes. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how we used to operate this is specifically for the Minnesota Dashboard. So previously we had, can you even read that? Probably not. That's kind of the point. We had a very text-heavy website. We had a lot of data tables that you'd have to click and drag to paste them into your own Excel spreadsheet if you wanted to use it. We had static images that were the beautiful Excel default. I know you all know those colors. Excel 2007. No dots, no sort of guide. That was really the way that the site operated. We also had to, send an email to an administrative assistant who would update the data, and then if we sent the wrong JPEG, we had to do it again, and so it was a pretty heavy lift. Generally we showed Minnesota and the U.S. If you wanted to find out about race ethnicity, you had to click on that, click and drag that table and make your own chart. The way we operate now is our site is completely, we have a content management system that we use that does text and that sort of thing, but any visualization that we have on the site is Tableau. And we've also made our dashboard in Tableau. So it's also a Tableau visualization, what you see here. It's not just the line charts, but the way that we kind of display our tables and our performance metrics are through Tableau. And so what, in sort of the big picture of this is that the website is now much more, and the vizzes are now much more interactive, dynamic. You can filter things. There's a lot more user options to sort of turn on and off the things that you want to have. And information can really expand to meet the end user's needs. So we try and embed things for people who want to dig a little bit more. We've got, links once you hover over, or tooltips, which is Tableau's way of sort of talking about more information when you hover over it. And it is much easier to update than what we were doing before. I'll talk a little bit about that. When we were preparing for this presentation, I looked back at some of the other data viz presentations that have been given for TCRG just to sort of think through what else had been put through. And Nick Peterson, who works at DHS and is sort of a Tableau guru, had given a presentation last year. And one of the things he pointed out, and I really think he's right about this, where we're going just broadly, multi-dimensional visualizations with infographics, layered graphics, analysis and dashboards, interactivity and dynamic visualizations, choosing the graph to fit the data and not the data to fit the graph, and it's easy to access in real time. So I think that we're kind of getting putting our toe in the water of visualization because we know that a static viz isn't enough anymore. And it really, with sort of the growing body of data that I think people want and that we have access to, being able to harness that is something that we really wanted to try to do. So the before and after is great, right? But whenever I'm watching HGTV and I see the before and after, I always wonder, like, what does it look like in the middle? When did you, like, knock down that wall and went, oh, gosh, what is that going to look like? So I wanted to give you a glance of the during because, as we mentioned, we are self-taught and there was a lot of learning, especially at the very beginning, figuring out spreadsheets and exports and extracts and how to do it. So this is a snapshot of what our Tableau, like on our shared server, not our Tableau server, on a just normal server, this is what we had. Every one of our indicators had its own workbook, and sometimes it had two of its own workbooks, the one that we worked on and the one that got pushed live. And then every indicator had its own Excel spreadsheet, and sometimes it had 4 Excel spreadsheets because we were pulling it from different things and joining it. And this is like a tenth of what we had at one point. And now we really made an effort in the last maybe 3 months or 4 months to try and condense this so that we could know where things are and update it much more easily. So now we have one spreadsheet, and these are 10 workbooks, and each of these has tabs within them. Jeff will kind of talk you through some of that nomenclature, workbooks and tabs and that sort of stuff. If you're using Excel, you sort of probably can imagine what that looks like. But so we really tried to scale down the number that we had because it was just too hard to manage. So if you get waist deep into this and go, oh my gosh, this is crazy, you can recreate your system so that it works better. I will say that. And as I mentioned, we did a lot of learning in that first piece, even just about data structure and folder structure to make it coherent. Even for our small team, we had to do that. So why it works for us at results management, we have this one dashboard, 8 outcome areas, 40 indicators, and lots of charts and graphs. All of the data that we use we are consumers of data. We do not create any of our own data on our team. So we have the fortune, and sometimes I think we only are able to really scratch the surface of the power of Tableau because we use other people's data that are aggregated already. Very different from something like DHS that has individual records that they're sort of piling together, or some other situation where you have individual records. We have things that are prepared for us. So if we use a lot of ACS data, we've got stuff from MnDOT and HUD, FERPAS, DHS, all of those that are sort of already in aggregate. And importantly, and you'll see why this is important, we don't have any private or identifiable data. So it's really just things that are already out there or are public data and could easily be out there if somebody asked for it. We have tabulations of data that aren't put out anywhere else that we're aware of, but it's all public, so it's not anything sensitive or under that term private. The way that we use it is obviously for these interactive downloadable charts in an easy to maintain system. We have an external audience, so we need something that is user friendly and people can interact with easily. And our team, the reason Tableau I think works for our team in particular, we are peer taught, self-taught, we're very small, and so we could sort of scale up quickly with the amount of data that we had, the numbers that we had, and who we are. Not one of us is a programmer or has experience programming. So I think we probably know the basics of SQL, but we aren't people that live and breathe that every day. And so we needed something that could sort of flex with that knowledge for what we had at that time. And we are really good at Googling, and we're really good online Tableau forum voyeurs. So there are lots of forums out there. There are a lot of blogs. We benefit from those just tremendously. I still remember the first time I did a dual axis chart with a synchronized axis following steps that I read on a blog, and it was like finally, you know, I hadn't been able to figure it out for a week and a half, but I think through that user community was really great. So the basics of Tableau and what it is. It's a business intelligence tool, so obviously it sort of comes out of this birth of big data and, on the business side of things. It builds data visualizations with the term vizzes, which I find kind of phonetically awkward, but that's what they are, they're vizzes. And I'd say it's easy-ish to learn the basics. Anyone here, would you agree with easy-ish? People have used it? Yeah. So I think it really expands your skill levels, and you can really, I mean, you could explode your ability to use Tableau if you are somebody who's going to dig in and code and really highly customize and do that sort of work. We do have somebody on your team who's doing that. As somebody who is really good at making an Excel chart, like I know exactly what I want in an Excel chart, I know how to make it look nice. Jenny Bolke can probably attest to that. I'm very particular about the kind of Excel chart I want. I did find it challenging to figure out the data structure. So, you know, I've, for a long time using Excel, you kind of work in a table format and you have it set out, you know what it looks like and what the series are. And with Tableau, you really sort of have to change the way that you think about data structure into much more of a database structure. So I don't know how else to say it. And once you start working with it a little bit more and you put in the data you think should come out as a bar chart and it comes out as something totally different, it's really frustrating because you know how to do it in Excel. But push past that, I'd say. So the other piece is that this is how I think about it. It's free to get hooked, reasonable to step into, and an expensive habit to maintain. So, you know, you can download it free and toy with it and really get to know it, but the more you sort of want it, the more expensive it gets. And the more you want to have something that's private or you don't necessarily want to show your draft, you need to pay to have that privilege. So it can be expensive. It's putsy and potentially beautiful. I think anything that sort of has a front-facing graphic side and data tends to be putsy. But, you know, people make really beautiful and useful graphs and charts out of it, interactive vizzes. They make really great vizzes out of it. I really think it's strong suited interactive and web-based visualization. So if you have something, you know, even the exercise that we're going to do later, you might say to yourself, well, like, I know how to do that in Excel. Well, yes, but the interactive piece, I think, is what kind of sets Tableau apart a little bit more. And that web-based piece is kind of important. So what it isn't, but sometimes at Management and Budget, we have shoehorned it to be this. So I'll put it out there that we've definitely used it in this way. It is not a graphic design or layout software. So if you're somebody who, you know, is used to using Illustrator and that's how you kind of fine-tune your stuff, it may be frustrating to you the way it exports into a PDF and you have to bring it into AI. And sometimes it doesn't. They don't talk well to each other or export kind of fuzzy if you're doing it without bringing it into PDF. So there are some quirks around that. It's not a web design, but I should say we use it as this all the time. We put it in printed reports. We try and make it work as best we can because we want to have the ability, the sort of flexibility that the software provides for our graphic pieces. So it's not a web design tool, but we definitely use it as a pretty important element in the way that somebody navigates around our site. So we use it as sort of a throughput the way you would other web design elements. It's not a data management system in and of itself. And for folks who use Tableau Server, they may have a different sort of take on it. But it, you know, it benefits from a good database system, but it isn't one all on its own. It can connect to, I think, 35 plus different types of databases. And it is not an Oracle. And we haven't exactly shoehorned it to be an Oracle, but I do think there's this idea that, like, once I get this perfect picture, the next policy implication is going to be super clear, and you know, I won't have to make a hard decision. The visualization will do it for me. I mean, if only, but no, you still have to know your data, and you still have to know all the other things around it. But it does really, I think it can help illuminate new insights. So the system itself, again, this is like from our experience using it. So there are two ways that we talk about Tableau, and it's not one thing, it's many things. One of the things it is the software used to make the visit. So the thing that you download or you buy, it's the software Tableau. But it also is where the vises are stored. So when you go to Tableau.com and Tableau Public, it's stored there. So you have to kind of separate like where it's stored and what you use to make it, and you'll see why. So there's Tableau Public, which is what we sent you guys to download. It's free. You can use it. And then there's Tableau Desktop, which is not free. You can have a single, you can purchase one Tableau Desktop, or you can purchase many. And I won't give you quotes because I'm not from Tableau, and I'm sure you can talk them down or something in their business. So, but ballparkish $1,000.
First, and then cheaper.
There you go. Yeah, you probably, you fill in the gaps on this one, because I know Indeed uses it left and right. So then there's the place where you store it. There's Tableau Public, which everyone can see and everyone can use. And anything that you want to save, if you're using Tableau Public, has to go onto Tableau Public online. You can't save anything on your own computer when you're using the free version. There's also Tableau Server. This is kind of the ends of the spectrum, which is not free. A lot of money. And it's secure. So you have things like permissions and, some people can see things other people can't. You can't download the data with it. You don't have to put it online in order to have it be seen by other people. And then there's Tableau Online, which is not free. It's also secure, but it's online instead of the server. On this version, you have to have hardware, actually, to make it work. On Tableau Online, it's in the cloud. And do you guys use online or server?
I'm not heard it called Tableau Online, but
yep.
Probably Premium.
Okay. Whoa, I don't even know about that one. So right here, there's another one. I was going to say your desktop, but something like that. So Tableau Public, obviously, you can save to public. Tableau Desktop, you can save to any of these things. And these are the two that we use. So we have Tableau Desktop, meaning that we save things on our actual own computers and on our servers. You guys saw that picture. But anytime we want to put something online that people can interact with, we put it on Tableau Public. And so everything that we do, other people can download and look at, which is why we can't use private data. Any questions on this one, or we can try and sort of parse it out? Okay. So now we're going to see, Benta is going to show us some of what the state is doing with it.
Yeah, so we thought we'd come to these presentations because we want to see some Tableau stuff. And so we'd show you kind of a sample of some of the things that are going on in the state. But like Jane said, there's like new teams that we hear about practically every week. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about. Also, the stuff that I'm going to show you is only public facing. Goodness, I need to find the right tab. Here we go. How do I switch the presentation? Show the maybe, yeah, great. Okay. So this is the Minnesota dashboard that Jane mentioned before. So this is one of our things. So to kind of give you a look at it and just show like it's this kind of clickable thing that you can go and interact with. But I was going to start out with the State Demographic Center. So they obviously, this is their own data, and I think all of the organizations I'll show you will be using, kind of presenting their own data here. And they do, I just think it's, first of all, it's kind of fun to see it this way, but this is an example of a viz I think is cool, that it shows the same data, but like in lots of different ways, and Tableau kind of really helps you do that. So this is a look at demographic data by county. These are kind of the age groups stacked here, so you can choose different counties and see how it changes. But then it also lets you, see the overall trend for all the different counties. So like from the same data source, it's like, okay, here's another way of looking at it. Click which ones you want to look at. And then they show you a third way even of how to do this. So this is a tree map. So, and all this is kind of a way, like even if you have a huge amount of data, like they probably do, Tableau kind of even shows you like different ways to do it, put it all together. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'm also going to look at DHS, so it might be more familiar to some people in the room. They have, and I actually was looking at it this morning, and it's even changed since the last time we looked at it. So people keep on updating this stuff. But this is the Child Welfare Data Dashboard. And so this is presenting performance measures monitoring outcomes of children touched by the welfare system. And my understanding is it's kind of both like an externally facing, obviously, but they also use it kind of internally for seeing how programs are doing. And this, I think, well, first of all, it shows a map. So Tableau actually can do mapping to a certain extent. It's not a GIS. And so those of you who've worked with GIS, it acts really differently. There's a lot of, we could have a longer discussion, but maybe we'll wait till later. A lot of, you know, maybe a little complicated parts. But if you have a data set and it says the county names, it's really easy to kind of throw that into a map. And we actually have been using it that way as well. And then another thing that this shows is that actually you can, you know, have it do calculations that kind of update automatically. So if you set up your data to go into it in the right way, like every time new data comes in here, so for like, you know, last quarter to this quarter, it'll recalculate, you know, kind of automatically for you. Tableau has some of that power. And then the other thing, so this is another way, you know, it's showing, again, access to the same data, looking at it in lots of different ways. I think it's kind of fun. They have a way that agencies, there's the different counties can compare themselves to one another. So I'm kind of curious how that works for them. But they do a really good job of using these tooltips, which is another thing that Jane mentioned. So, you know, even if this isn't particularly, you know, there's not a ton of filters on this one, it's interactive in this way on the web where you can get a lot of extra information in there. And the tooltips generally are populated by other fields that are in your data set, so that also can be like this automatic thing that happens. So this kind of leads into, I think, DEED. So someone else that might be familiar with this does as good a job of showing, taking what is a lot of data and kind of cramming it into like a small space on the web. So instead of having, you know, a 1,000-page report or something, or lots amounts of pages, they have this one page with a report card. And I'm definitely not super familiar with all this data here, but just having clicked around with it, it's kind of really impressive how much stuff they fit in here. So you can choose a program, and you can choose if you're interested in by race, let's say, and the levels of detail as you go through, and it goes across all these different tabs. It kind of starts to give you an impression of like how much data must be behind all of this. But as a user, if I know what I'm interested in, it makes it, you know, I think a million times easier to kind of find what you're looking for and what is probably a huge database, and shows you, I don't know, just how much more pleasant that is to sort of look at. And then I'd be remiss to not mention these guys. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, to us, seem to be one of the, well, a number of these agencies have been using this kind of maybe the longest. Let's see if I can scroll down. Sorry. So this is an example, here we go, of what Tableau calls a story up here. So this is the data that it kind of looks a lot more like a web page. You don't really see the barriers, but you know, you can get these really, they've obviously spent a lot of time like customizing the look and feel of this, which is really impressive. They have the maps, they have the filters, but you can kind of click through. So different than the tabs, you click through and you're kind of given the story that they want to tell you. So this is, you know, Tableau kind of talks about this as a way that you can kind of guide your users maybe through like more like what you want to tell them or how you want to show them different pieces of information. And this is like Deed, an example of a huge amount of data that they're providing in a relatively, at least, small space on their website, kind of easier for users to get into it and like find specifically what they're looking for. And then I'm going to shift gears here now and give you a little sample of some new things that we've been working on. So we also do public-facing stuff, like Jane said, but we definitely, we don't use our own data. So what we're doing much more of the time is gathering other people's data, kind of putting it together. So this is a viz that we've created for the World's Best Workforce that Jane mentioned earlier, and it focuses on 5 key goals, those 5 dots you see at the top. And kind of it's a collection of several different indicators. So this is our dashboard viz for this, where we kind of have everything. So that gives you a look. The way that we've designed this, I mean, it's interactive, like all Tableau vizes are, so you can sort by improving. Of course, that always happens when you're presenting. Seems to be what happens. But it's also this kind of nicely downloadable, just to show you how easy it is, PDF. So if people want to know how the state of Minnesota is doing on all of these different indicators. It takes just a couple of seconds, and then there you have it. So for us, it's a good way of how we like to manage these things. And of course, this is updated. If the data changes, it gets updated automatically through. And we do a lot of kind of maybe more Excel-style charts and graphs, just kind of based off of the data we have. But we've also, like, as we've been learning more and pushing ourselves, we've been kind of looking at different ways, how can we progress? So this is kind of like where we've been getting to with our skill level in Tableau. This is a visualization that's looking at opportunity gaps across all the different indicators, and it's kind of a good way of showing, I think this is something that you couldn't do in Excel if you wanted to. So this is looking at the difference between American Indians and the average Minnesota score, but you can very quickly change it and look at the black and white achievement gaps for, well, all the indicators that we have. So for breastfeeding, for maternal depression, incarceration at birth. So that's kind of a quick run. I'm sure if you guys are here, you've probably seen other Tableau visualizations, especially maybe more private sector, maybe kind of more fun ones. There's a ton of stuff out there, but I hope like this kind of give you an idea of how the government is using it, and maybe something that's a little bit more applicable to the work that you guys are doing. And on that, I think Jeff is going to walk through